This happened to me when I was a young child. It's still something that I struggle to explain. I think I was around 10 years old or so. I was not born in the United States. I am actually from Tanzania. My parents did not actually move to the US until I was around 10 or 11 years old. There was this lake where I lived that the kids liked to hang out around. We would play in it and goof off. It is a massive lake. It's called Lake Tanganyika. I think it's the second biggest / deepest lake in the whole world. Because of this, it is very dangerous, and a lot of our parents forbade us from going down there. Being the rash and stupid kids that we were, of course, we went anyway. We just like to swim and explore and stuff. The lake is so big, it actually isn't just in Tanzania. The lake is actually in 4 different countries at once. One evening, I was down there with a couple of my friends. We had skipped school that day and were hiding from our parents. We were worried that we would get a hard beating, so we went where we thought they would not look for us. It is closer to winter time when this happened, so it is pretty much deserted. The water was too cold for most people, but we did not care. A lot of people were still working at that time too. We were the only ones inside. My friends and I are getting into our shorts and stuff to go swimming. As we do this, I get this really weird feeling, like just a feeling of sheer dread. It feels like I cannot move. I just stand there near the water's edge as my 2 friends jump in and swim out. I am just standing there, watching the 2 of them as they splash and laugh. I feel fully frozen. My friends spot me and call to me. They tell me to stop being scared and to jump in. I am like physically shivering at this point. It's colder than usual, but I still should not be shivering like this. Then, all of a sudden, I start to see something. I see it below my 2 friends. It's what looks like some kind of a big shadow just beneath them. It starts off small and slowly gets bigger until eventually the shadow is bigger than both of them. It is entirely engulfing them. I start shouting and screaming and wave my arms for them to see me. They eventually look over and see my face. I point downwards and eventually they look down. They just have confused looks on their faces as they do so, like they can't really see anything. One of my friends throws his arms up as if to say, "What the fuck are you pointing at?" The second friend gets a bright idea. He decides to dive underwater to get a better look at what I am pointing at. Both of my friends are very proficient swimmers, but still I am panicking. My shivering is becoming more uncontrollable. I am basically begging the first friend to get out and swim back, but he tells me to wait. What feels like several minutes passes by, and the second friend does not come back up. I am shaking even more. The first friend is starting to panic now too. He signals to me that he is going to dive down too, but he does not get the chance to do anything. I see the water kind of ripple and bubble, and then I see something surface close by to my friend, basically exactly where the second friend dove under. My friend just screams and bats whatever the thing is away from himself. He keeps pushing water in its direction to move it away and distances himself. It took me a second to make it out, as I do not have the best vision, but when I squinted I saw it. What looked like a limb. Not just a limb, but an arm. I could not know for sure, but I think it was the second friend's. I could not tell exactly, but it looked gnawed off. After a second or 2 of pushing it away, my friend focuses himself enough to start paddling back to shore. Even though I am freaking out, I managed to force myself to dive into the water. My plan was to swim and meet him halfway, to try and, I don't know, help drag him back faster. A stupid fucking idea, I know. That big shadow is still there. It follows him as he swims. He cannot escape it. It stays directly under him the whole time, no matter how fast he swims. Then, all of a sudden, I see the water just directly behind my swimming friend start to move. And something else surfaces. I don't even know how to describe it. I just see massive eyes at first. It looks reptilian, like how a snake's eyes are placed on the sides of its head, but this thing is much bigger than a snake. It makes my friend look tiny in comparison. It looks completely serpentine, but it is incredibly scaly and wide. It surfaces ever so slowly until it is towering over my friend. And then it starts to move its head / body backwards. It moves its head all the way back behind its body. And then it lunges faster than my eyes could even see. 1 second it was there. The next second, my friend was screaming and I could see blood. It had sunk its teeth into one of my friend's legs. It had the fucking thing off somewhere below the knee. My friend just stopped swimming. He looks like he has gone into shock. He is just floating in place, looking at his arms and fingers like he is confused. He looks disoriented, like he does not know which way to swim anymore. He turns back towards the thing, but does not even register it. He starts swimming back towards it. I am screaming and thrashing and trying my best to make it to him. Even though I know I should have just gone, I didn't want to leave him. I had been best friends with him since I was like 3 years old, but before my very eyes, I watch as the thing lunges again. It sinks its teeth into his body and then just drags him off underneath the water. Once I saw that, I just turned and swam. I did not want to see anymore. I just wanted to be at home with my mom. I wished I had gone to school that day. I wished I had listened to them and not gone near the lake. I made it home after I don't know how long. My vision was just a blur. I did not even stop to put my clothes back on. I just ran back in my shorts. When I burst through the door to them, I could tell that they were worried. They did not even smack me. My mom just asked me what happened. I guess that she just knew that something was up. After I eventually calmed down, I told them the whole story, exactly as I told it here. They did not believe me one bit. They thought I made the entire thing up. They thought I made up some story about a monster so that I would not get in trouble for disobeying their orders. They told my friend's parents as soon as they could. Both them and my parents believed that my friends had drowned or been swept away by a current. They were devastated. They were angry at me. They blamed me for their kids being dead. If it wasn't for my father, I think they would have beat me senseless. It took us a couple of months, but we eventually moved away, and eventually moved to the US. They don't believe me, but I know what I saw. My friends did not drown. This happened to me in the summer of 2003. At the time, I was 9 years old. My parents bought a house in Italy. It was small, cute, and in a safe little town near a lake. At night, I used to sit on some rocks and look at the lake. While doing it, I would see a white figure dancing above the water. It looked human, but I can't figure out much about it. I get spooked and run away. I tell my parents, but they do not believe me. I go again the next night and try to see if I can find the figure again. Nope. I keep doing it for around 3 weeks. I eventually see it again. This time it's swimming. I get closer and try to speak with it. It looks at me and just stares, and then it fades away. I continue doing the same thing as I did before for a few days. While looking at the lake, I feel something touching me. Behind me, it's the white figure. It is around 2 meters tall, unisex and glowing. It has no eyes and no features at all. I am spooked as fuck, but I somehow feel that it won't hurt me. I sit back on the rock, and it sits right next to me. It does nothing but look at the lake and look at me. Eventually, I start talking about things while it looks at me. It does not say a word or do anything, but listens to me. Eventually, I leave, as I was getting tired. It just keeps looking at me while I depart. The next night, the same thing happens. I just talk to it. I do this for around 2 months. Then eventually, I have to leave the town. The last night in town, I tell it that I must leave, and that I hope I see it again someday. It gets up and starts to dance on the water again. It keeps dancing until it fades away. I say goodbye to it, and I can feel sadness, but also gratitude coming from it. I am going back home. I meet with an old lady. She tells me that it was nice what I did, talking to it. I am surprised, and ask her about what she means. She told me that she can also see it, and that she saw me every night talking to it. She believes that it is a benevolent spirit that is watching and mimicking people. It saw people dance, and it started to dance. It saw people swim, and it started to swim, etc. I returned after a year, but I did not encounter it ever again. I am glad I was able to meet it, whatever it was. Reminds me of something similar that happened to me when I was staying in a cottage on Lake Huron. We used to go there for a couple weeks every summer. It is the middle of the week, so most cottages are empty, as it is a vacation spot primarily. I am walking down the beach with my younger cousin. It's a cloudy, windy afternoon, and the beach is literally deserted. I hear someone call out over the wind. I look up at one of the empty-looking cottages and see a young girl in a white summer dress. She motions for me and my cousin to follow her and runs behind the cottage. We both stand there and give each other a what the fuck look. The little girl returns and motions the exact same way for us to follow her. My little cousin laughs, but I am getting a really uneasy feeling. I grab her arm and start moving back down the beach towards our cottage. I look back, and the girl is standing there motionless, watching us walk away. The cottage had no lights on, no furniture on the porch, and generally no signs of life at all. It did not really set in until after how odd it was, but my brain was telling me to leave immediately. I was invited to a country/lake house in Maine by the family of my girlfriend at the time, Sophie. It's around late June/early July. I spent my birthday/Independence Day there, having a barbecue and riding on a boat. We got into the newspaper that day. So my girlfriend and I know this guy called Scott, who is a mutual friend who I met through her friend Ruby. Scott was coming to pick us up in his car and take us out for the night, drinking and shit as teens do in America. The lake house is on the lake and has a dirt road leading from it towards the main road. It is pretty long and angles upward. It's flanked on either side by woods. The lake house itself is completely solitary. Scott calls my ex while we were standing in the kitchen talking to her mom about tomorrow's events. My ex's sister was coming up from Florida that day, and we were all going to surprise her with a gift from the horse stables that she learned how to ride at as a kid. So anyway, Scott calls her up and lets her know he's at the turnoff waiting for us, where the dirt road meets the main road. That bastard does not want to drive down, the lazy fuck. So we decide fuck it, and make our way up the dirt road. We see him there in his pickup, waiting far ahead. I slowly but surely notice this figure standing in the middle of the dirt road. It's hard to make out though. As we got closer, it looked like a woman dressed in white, with long dark hair to her ass. She/it was facing towards Scott. I thought it was a trick of the darkness or moon or some shit, because the road is literally fucking dark as fuck. I did not say anything because I did not want to seem like a pussy. Being from the city, I was not sure what I was looking at, so I kept quiet. How would it look if I just noped out of there? As we were about 10 feet away from it, Sophie turns to me and asks, "Do you see that?" I said yes. As soon as I did, we both turned and ran the fuck back to the house. It felt like the longest run in my entire life. We did not dare look back, we just kept running. We get back into the house. We call Scott and order him to drive down. When he gets down to the house, we ask him if he saw anything. Nah. We told him what we saw. He just laughed it off. We eventually got into the truck and headed up the dirt road. As we are halfway up, there is this loud fucking bang against the side of the passenger door. What the fuck was that? Was pretty much all of our reactions. Scott sped up and we noped the fuck out of there. We ended up going to a gas station. When we got out of the pickup, there was a massive dent in the door. Scott turns to us and asks, "What the hell did you guys see on the road before I drove down?" We explain everything to him again. He calls his uncle, who is a cop, asks him to meet us at the gas station. He comes, and we explain everything to him. He didn't seem surprised at all with anything we were saying. In the end, he gave us a warning for underage drinking. Scott was not allowed to drive, and we all got into the back of his uncle's cruiser. He took us back to the house, and then left with Scott. A few days go by, and we can't get a hold of him on his phone. We end up seeing the white woman in the bushes near one of the 2 cabins on the lake house grounds, 3 total buildings. We are scared fucking shitless for the entire rest of our trip. I get chills just thinking about it, even today. This happened to us in 2008. Sorry if it doesn't make much sense. I am no writer, and I am pretty tired. I have not been sleeping too good. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. My friend and I saw something at Lake Cushman when we were younger, and still to this day, very few people believe us. My family went on an annual family camping trip, typically a week after school was out, so in May or June. At the time of this event, I was 14 years old, and being around family long term was considered lame, so I asked if I could bring a friend. Luckily for all involved, they treated my friend Claire as a second daughter and agreed immediately. I do have 2 younger brothers that went with us. They were 8 and 10 at the time. Claire was always sweet to them too, and we were both typically willing to play with them, not to mention babysit as well. But I just wanted some time with someone my own age for a change. We made our own itinerary for what we would do when we got there. My parents brought an even bigger tent, so Claire and I could have our own space, which was exciting. When we first got there and found our place, we set up our tent with my dad's help and then went off to do things on our own. We went swimming, sat at the beach with our journals and talked. We even helped with dinner and roasting marshmallows by the fire. I will also include, since I haven't yet, that this was 2006, so I did not have a cell phone. Claire did, but it was one of those bricks of a Nokia phone, and it was useless bringing it to the lake, so she left it at my place. It was just us in nature, so we had a lot of opportunities to use our imagination and explore the area. It wasn't until the 3rd evening that things got freaky. Claire and I had found this little cluster of trees and low-hanging limbs. We thought it would be cool to make a fort out of it as kind of our own little space. So with permission from my parents, we grabbed our sleeping bags and an extra sheet that we had brought and hung them up the best that we could over the branches. Maybe we were a bit overzealous in our abilities, but we made it work and we were proud of it. We sat under it with our magazines and journals again and talked and shared stories. We were told that we could stay there until it was dark, but that they did not want us sleeping outside of our tent due to possible wildlife. That's when we noticed the splashing. At first, we thought it was maybe someone swimming. We were still in a popular camping area, and even though it was starting to get dark, it was possible others were in the area swimming. However, the splashing sounds were wrong. It wasn't like the normal. I know that sounds weird, but if you think about what it sounds like when people splash, it's kind of rhythmic while people are swimming, and then pauses, like they stopped. But this sound was way too rhythmic, like something was methodically moving through the water. It did not speed up or slow down. There weren't just normal swooshes of water being moved as you waded in. It was so patterned that Claire and I got it down. Splash, splash, wait 3 seconds. Splash, splash, wait 3 seconds, over and over. I thought maybe it was someone in a paddle boat or something, but there was not a boat in sight. Not to mention, they would have had to go pretty far to be where we are, because there was not a boat dock by us. After listening to it for a while, and both of us wanting answers, we decided to walk towards the lake to check it out. The sun was peeking out from behind some trees, so we had a little bit of light left, but the water was doing something I have never seen before. Usually, you can see the water lap at the shore in random patterns. You see it hitting some rocks and the ripples coming off of it, or the divide in a ripple when it meets the driftwood sticking out from under the water. But this was different. The waves were coming in perfect intervals, like a metronome, creating what Claire and I have come to call geometric patterns on the surface that looked almost artificial. Then we saw something glowing. They were like the bioluminescence things you sometimes see in tide pools, but deeper and with a greenish blue tone. They were moving in a perfect circle about 30 feet out from the shore. I remember standing there in amazement and confusion as I watched this circle of light get smaller and spiral inward. What the hell were we witnessing? The last thing that we saw and heard was a low humming or gurgling sound. It was like someone was trying to hum with a mouthful of water. And in the very center of the lights, something started poking out. The more it came out of the water, the more confused I became. The closest I can get is this. Imagine if someone tried to make a swan out of broken mirror pieces, but made it 4 times too big and gave it a neck that would bend in impossible ways. Its head, if you could call it that, was smooth and reflective like polished metal, with these dark indentations where I should be, but it only got more bizarre. The whole thing rose up about 4 or 5 feet out of the water, but somehow never made a sound. The splashing had completely ceased. Everything was silent. You could not hear a single drop of water drip off of this thing and land back into the lake. You could not hear the splashes around it like you would when someone left the water. Even the usual nighttime forest sounds of crickets and frogs had gone quiet. Claire grabbed my arm so hard that it hurt, causing me to finally break from my trance and look over at her. She said that she wanted to go back to my parents, and I agreed. Something about that moment told me that we should not be witnessing whatever was happening in the lake. We left our journals and our magazines at the fort and then ran back to the camp. When we got back, my parents could tell something was wrong and they asked us. I told them that there was something in the water, and when my dad asked us to describe it, we were both at a loss for words. He laughed at first, not in a way to make fun of us, but more so because we were stumped. Then Claire mentioned the metallic swan thing, and both parents were back to looking at us like we just spoke in German. My dad said that we probably did not see something right, and just left it at that. We stayed by the fire for a while, too creeped out to really do anything until my brother demanded s'mores. That really got our mind off of things until it was time for us to go to bed. As you may recall, we left our fort as it was, including our sleeping bags. We did not want to go alone, so we asked my dad to walk with us back over there, and he agreed. We all walked back there together, and as soon as we were within view of our fort, we knew something was wrong. The sleeping bag and sheets had fallen to the ground, but there was no breeze and no reason for it to have fallen. We got close and were shocked to find everything was soaked. It was like everything had been knocked down, formed in a circle with it, almost like a nest, and in the center was a small puddle. There was no way the water could have reached where we were set up, and it certainly had not rained either. But there was a trail, almost like a very small and shallow trench that led up from the lake to our fort. You could tell that the sand and the dirt was still a little wet, but not as wet as our stuff. I could tell that even my dad was perplexed. I asked him what could have caused that, and for a while, he did not say anything. He just started grabbing the bedding and asking us to pick up our books, not that I would have left them. There was no point. Everything was waterlogged, our journals, the magazines, all of it. I was so upset, but was still just as freaked out. Was it the thing that we saw in the water that had caused that? What would have happened if we would have stayed there? As we walked back, I tried asking my dad what it was again, and he said it was probably just an alligator or something. I thought that was weird, but I also was not going to question him. I could see an alligator making a trail up to our fort, but I did not understand how it could soak everything like that. Again, I know some of you are probably thinking, there are no alligators in Washington. What are you talking about? And you are absolutely right, and I am with you on that. I understand that better now that I've looked into it, but as a young teen, all I could do was take my dad's word for it. But I know he was wrong, so if we know it's not alligators or crocodiles, then what was it that we saw out there? To this day, my parents stand by that we either did not see something right, or we were just exaggerating details, but I know what I saw. I know that Claire saw the same thing, because we both wrote about it before we discussed out loud everything that we saw. If we were making it up, how could our description be so exact and never change over the years? All I know is there is, or at least was, something out there, creating its perfect spirals of water and lights, and no one believes us. From the summer of 2021 to 2022, I was a lifeguard at a small beach called Adams Point Beach, which is located in Queechy Lake, New York. I didn't really enjoy my job, to be honest. Besides making friends with other lifeguards, I was not getting paid enough money, and my final paycheck for the summer of 2021 was about $350 in total. To make matters even more difficult, I come from a family with no money. I live on a farm, and my parents fight with each other a lot. I never went to college because my family cannot afford it, so I have to work 2 jobs every day. One from 9 to 5, and the other from 6 to 11, where I only get paid $15 an hour. In the summer of 2022, my boss, for whatever reason, had demoted me to a sub-lifeguard. This really pissed me off because I could not see my friends. One day in August of 2022, I was called in to substitute for a lifeguard, as this lifeguard was busy that day, and only one other lifeguard was available. Usually, they were free, but that day there was a shortage of staff. The start of the day was like how any other day would usually start. Unfortunately, that changed in the afternoon. My 30-minute shift on the lifeguard chair was done, and the other lifeguard swapped with me. I walked back to the shed and went inside of it. About 10 minutes later, while I was on my phone, I heard a bunch of screaming and crying outside of the shed with the door closed. I did not know what was going on, so I walked outside. What I saw next is an image that I will never unsee for the rest of my life. What I saw was the lifeguard, along with 4 other people, sitting with a woman on a surf rescue board with both of her legs severed off. I felt petrified, but I had to help the other lifeguard, as it was my job to save people. I helped carry the surfboard, but I looked behind me, as it was so brutal to look at what was in front of me. I helped everyone place the board on a table with the woman lying on it right next to the shed. Thankfully, the police and the medics were already called. I asked what had happened. One guy said that a guy by himself in a speedboat wasn't looking where he was driving the boat. People told him to stop and slow down, but he was in his own world. He then ran over the woman and then would come to a stop like 3 seconds later. He apparently took off like a coward would do. I could not believe what I was hearing. I then told the man to describe what the speedboat looked like. I asked him because this was a very small lake, and I pretty much knew everyone who comes to this lake and lives right next to it. He said that it was a blue jet boat. When the man told me this, I felt as if my whole world was coming to an end. That was my dad's boat. He is the only one who owns a jet boat on this lake. I then saw everything turn blurry, and then it all went to black. I woke up with 2 EMTs side by side next to me. They asked if I was alright. I told them I was fine, and I went to go grab my water bottle, and then drank the water as if I had never drunk water before in my life. I then exited the beach area as my boss told everyone to go home because of what had happened today. I got in my car and drove home, which was about 3 to 4 minutes away. As I got home, I turned off my car and stepped out to see my dad pacing back and forth nervously through the kitchen window. I then rushed inside of the house, and I went on a full-on rampage on my father. I confronted him and then called him a coward for leaving the scene of the accident. He was breathing so hard. I had never seen him breathing like this before. As I was still yelling at him, and my adrenaline was kicking in more than ever, I shoved him and then started hitting him. He told me to calm the fuck down. After about 10 hits, I finally pushed him to his full limits, and he punched me so hard that I fell to the ground and my ears were ringing. He then yelled at me to stay the fuck down, you little bitch, before running out of the house and speeding off somewhere. I continued to bawl my eyes out. I was never close with my dad. I never came to him for help when needed, but never in a million years would I have thought that he would end up doing something so horrific. About an hour and a half later, my mom finally came home after going to the hospital to check on the woman whom my father had injured. As my mother walked through the door, she hugged me for what felt like an eternity, and we cried together. We sat down together at the dinner table, and she told me some good news and bad news. The good news was that the woman was alive and okay. The bad news was that both of her legs were amputated off and that they would have to be refitted with bionic legs. I felt so relieved that she had survived, but I was still so devastated that my father took off, never even apologized, and never came to see the woman in the hospital. My mother asked me where her husband went. I told my mom that he took off. We tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. The police were called again, and we filed a missing persons report on my dad. The next few weeks, the police tried searching everywhere for him, and came up empty-handed. It was the worst 3 weeks of my life. I quit my job straight after due to the traumatic side I had seen on that very day. I had been seeing a psychologist 3 times a week now. Each day, I was very slowly starting to get better and better, but I still have a long way to go. I also only work 1 job now and have been promoted at my job, which now I get paid $25 an hour. This makes me happier, as I still have some luck in this world. I have not seen my father since. I don't really miss him that much after he attacked me and called me a bitch. I wish I could tell you that's where the story ends, but sadly, it isn't, and the next part gets even worse. Fast forwarding to sometime in mid-July during this past summer of 2024, I decided to go kayaking at 7 o'clock at night. I wanted to exercise my brain and needed some free time for myself. I took off in my kayak. I kayaked in the area of around 30 feet deep, then kayaking to the shallower area. My destination was to stop at a land area to walk on it and to take a break from kayaking as my arms were getting sore. During this whole time kayaking, I was looking at the water beneath me. As I got to around 15 feet deep, what I saw on the bottom of the ground underneath the water was textbook horror. I saw a dead body of an old woman. I paddled out there so fast and then reached my destination that I originally planned to go to. After pulling my kayak to shore, I ran to the grass area and threw up around 5 times. Luckily, I had my phone on me, so I called 911. The police came 10 minutes later. About 7 cop cars showed up, along with the SWAT team. I gave them my story, and they told me to evacuate the area as it will be going under investigation. About 2 weeks later, we got some of the worst news ever, more so than anyone who had lived in my town had ever gotten before. The detective told us that this person was murdered. They also traced DNA and fingerprints to try to find out who the perpetrator was, and it worked. When they revealed who the killer was, I was nowhere near prepared to find out who it would be. It was my estranged father. My father. Why the hell would he come back to this town if his main goal was to try to escape? I could not think of any motive of why he would even kill this person. This was so devastating that the next day, I packed up most of my clothes and drove off all the way downstate to New York City. I needed a break from the so-called curse that was going on upstate in my hometown. I stayed in New York City for about 3 weeks in a cheap hotel and then came back. The police this time, along with the FBI, searched again for my father, and yet again, they found nothing. I quit my job after this, and I am currently unemployed. Luckily, I have my little sister, who had just graduated high school, to take over for me. As you are hearing the story as of now, there is still no update on where my father could possibly be. He could be living in another state far away, or he could have fled the country. I never want to see my father ever again after hearing that he murdered another human being. If there is more news revolving around this case, I will keep you posted.